Hello friends, in this video we're going to discuss why Zelensky had his highest Polish award taken away, how Kiev responded to this, whether Warsaw has the right to demand a seat at the negotiating table with Russia, and why Polish farmers are afraid. Let's discuss everything now. We have a lot of political news. Please give a like and subscribe to the channel right now. Friends, huge thanks to everyone who doesn't mind. These simple actions take just 2 seconds. Thank you for your support. Remember, TransferGo is the top money transfer service. The link's in the description. Use it to send money to loved ones in Ukraine. Now, let's get started. The President of Poland, Karol Nawrocki, has taken away the Order of the White Eagle, the country's highest award, from Zelensky. As stated in the message, the Office of the President of Poland announced that the President's decision regarding the highest Polish award, which had been given to the President of Ukraine, is final. The issue was previously submitted for review to the chapter of the Order of the White Eagle. The meeting was held on June 8th. They sat for a long time thinking about what to do with this, but at that time the office did not disclose the content of the conclusion, only stating that Nawrocki would announce his decision at the appropriate time. Well, as you can see, 11 days have passed and Nawrocki has found the time. Well, let me remind you, this is related to the fact that Zelensky gave one of the Ukrainian armed forces units the name Heroes of the UPA. The reason here is purely historical and of course extremely painful for Polish society. Nawrocki's decision came in response to that. Well, that's how it is. The armed forces of Ukraine thought it over and couldn't find any name other than Heroes of the UPA. But for the Polish side, this organization is associated exclusively with the tragic events of the Wołyń massacre of 1943-1945. You see, in politics, symbols have enormous value, especially when it comes to mobilizing the electorate internally, particularly the right wing. And Nawrocki, a professional historian and the former head of the Institute of National Remembrance, simply could not ignore such an occasion. Friends, please write in the comments what you think. Was it right that Zelensky had this order taken away, or was it wrong? By the way, I'd like to remind you that Benito Mussolini was also a recipient of the Order of the White Eagle. And a lady like Catherine II was also a recipient of the Order of the White Eagle, but theirs was not taken away. There you go. Well, friends, let's get back to Nawrocki. For him, this is a rock-solid way to show voters, here, dear comrades, our national dignity is above all else. Yes, although the Polish president himself immediately clarified, he talked about something there for 12 minutes saying this step is not directed against the Ukrainian people and Warsaw is not going to change its strategic course of supporting Ukraine against Russia. In short, we'll continue supplying weapons, but we'll take back the order. Well, basically, they have the right to do that. What can I say? I'm not going to take anyone's side. They made the decision. That's it. Well, it's obvious that the support will continue because I've already said in my videos that there are 3 tracks in the relationship between Poland and Ukraine, and one of them is military, and that won't change because the Poles themselves don't want to clash with the Russians. So, look, here's the problem. For Zelensky, the issue is that inside Ukraine, the cult of OUN and UPA has become part of state policy, especially after 2014 and especially after 2022. Any attempt publicly distancing from the UPA will be perceived by part of society as giving in to external pressure. So, for Tusk, yes, because Tusk also has to sign off on this matter, it's a mirrored problem. Because in Poland, the topic of Volhynia has long since stopped being just the domain of right-wing parties. Today, almost the entire political spectrum believes that recognizing the crimes of the UPA and exhuming their victims are essential conditions for normalizing relations. If Tusk starts pretending that this issue doesn't exist, like, I'll just close my eyes and you'll all disappear, he'll be accused of neglecting Polish historical memory. Therefore, the most likely scenario for what will happen next is that Zelensky will not abandon his current stance on the UPA, and Tusk will not give up the Polish demands regarding Volhynia. And both sides will try not to turn this situation into a full-blown diplomatic crisis. Yes, because cooperation on security and military issues will continue separately regardless of historical conflicts. In fact, this is already happening. This has actually been happening for years. The Poles are helping, but their statements about Volhynia are getting harsher. Ukraine thanks them for their help, but doesn't change its memory policy. Well, for Kiev, the most unpleasant thing is that previously the Poles kept postponing this issue, but now the Poles are saying, no, let's sort this out. Well, and of course, there's a danger here for Tusk because he's a smart prime minister. If he's too soft, they'll start attacking him. Although, in any case, they'll start attacking him from the right, in the position of defending national identity. If he's too tough, he'll ruin relations with Kiev and some Western allies. That's why he'll have to walk a narrow path and support Ukraine as a state. And at the same time, he needs to push on historical issues because the elections are already coming up in about a year. But what else? Anything else? They've already responded in Kiev. Yes, Kirill Alexeyevich Budanov, the former head of Ukrainian intelligence. Yes, now, just a second, friends. Budanov refused the Polish award for the Golden Officer's Cross of the Order of Merit for Poland. The head of Ukrainian intelligence did this as a protest against the decision of the president of Poland to strip Zelensky of the Order of the White Eagle. Well, that's the news. Next, the commander of the Ukrainian Volunteer Army, Dmytro Yarosh. By the way, I'm actually curious, I'm not joking, I'm just genuinely interested in which direction they are fighting. Dmytro Yarosh harshly criticized Novrodsky for stripping away this Order of the White Eagle, and with your permission, I'll read it out. Polish politicians, blinded by chauvinism inciting hostility against Ukraine, think that they are eternal. They have forgotten about joint achievements and victories and are trying to stir up what divides us. They don't want to have a strong alliance with Ukraine and other European countries. Relying on falsified history, they don't want to move forward but dream of crawling on their knees. These Polish politicians are corrupt whores. Sorry for the expression, I hope my parents aren't watching this video, their time will be over. Says the statement by Yarosh. Yes, it was published on the Telegram channel. Well, of course it added fuel to the fire. The head of the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sabiha, also refused the Polish Commander's Cross. That's it. Zamil wrote on Facebook that he will return all of this to Poland for his services to Poland when he was awarded in 2022. That's it. In his opinion, Poland's decision to strip Zelensky of the Order of the White Eagle is a strategic mistake that will benefit not Turkey, but only Moscow. Well, yes, so over there, the guys are actually happy because they didn't spend a single ruble on all of this, and everything was done by the dear allies themselves. Friends, what else caught my attention? Poland is demanding a seat at the negotiating table with Russia. Otherwise, it will not recognize any agreements, Tusk stated. He says that Warsaw must directly participate in any negotiations about a ceasefire or the future peace between Ukraine and the world. According to him, separate formats like E3, E5 cannot claim the right to speak on behalf of the entire European Union. Tusk emphasized that any decisions regarding Ukraine will inevitably affect Poland. Therefore, either negotiations go through EU mechanisms or Warsaw participates directly, and Poland's presence will not respect such agreements. Friends, write in the comments what you think about this. Well, I don't have my own opinion, of course. Yes, because I'm just reading the news. But the taxi driver I rode with today from Scalea to, well, San Nicola Archello, he says that Mr. Tusk's statement is very beautiful, loud, and patriotic. The Poles, wow, look how great we are, we firmly declared our position. But on what grounds, on what historical or economic basis are they at war or something? Warsaw wants its own seat at talks of this level. Let's look at everything cynically. In this kind of international relations system, as we can see, pragmatism outweighs any declarations. You don't get a seat at the negotiating table because of your good looks or because you live nearby. Obviously, it matters to you, it's important to you, and you need it. Those at the table are either directly fighting or providing material and technical support for this global banquet. In other words, superpowers and key donors with nuclear arsenals. Poland, with all due respect to its ambitions, does not have such geopolitical influence or scale. Yes, it is involved in logistics. Well, yes, they took in 1 million refugees and they're making good money off them. But economically and militarily, it is completely aligned with NATO and the European Union. And when, say, Washington or Berlin want to negotiate, and they can, especially with them, but no one is planning to negotiate with Berlin, honestly, Warsaw's opinion will be of interest only as a very last consideration. Saying we do not recognize the agreements is a great slogan for the Polish domestic voter to show how tough we are. But in practice, if the major players have agreed on everything or will agree, Warsaw will simply be presented with a fait accompli. This has happened more than once in history. So friends, what else? The president of Poland called Ukraine's accession to the European Union a threat to Polish agriculture. That's exactly what he wrote. Ukraine joining the EU threatens Polish agriculture. As president of Poland, I understand Ukraine's goals. I will always defend fair treatment of Polish farmers and Polish agricultural products, including in the context of the Green Deal and EU decisions. That's how it is. It was published on X. Well, for the Poles, it's pure capitalist economics. While they talk about values from the podium, in real life, self-interest always wins. Ukraine, with its colossal agricultural sector and low production costs, is a death sentence for the Polish farmer within the single European market. And let me remind you, the Polish farmer is already relying on subsidies. If tariffs and restrictions are removed, Polish agriculture won't withstand the competition. It will go under. That's why the president of Poland is absolutely pragmatic in protecting his own interests and his electorate. Charity begins at home and business is business. Friends, that's the news. Please like, comment, and take care of yourselves and loved ones. That's all for now. See you next time.